Alright mate, how you doing? In today's video, I'm giving you 4 moments that separate the men from the boys. And I'm not talking about in a kind of alpha male, like get hairs on your chest, go on kind of like rah rah kind of toxic kind of way. I'm talking on a deeper level about 4 specific moments in a man's life that mark that he's making, or he has in some cases fully made, the transition from psychological boy to psychological man. So the 4 moments I'm going to talk about, they also come from my observations of men, because I've been working now as a men's coach through this YouTube channel for over 4 years. I've been doing this seriously. I've worked with over 200 men at this point. I've ran retreats. I've dived into writing countless articles and content pieces about this. So I hope that gives you a bit of idea as to where I'm coming from, that I'm not just kind of pulling this shit from ChatGPT or whatever. And I almost forgot, mate, my name is Oliver, if we've never met before. On this channel, I like to help men overcome nice guy syndrome, conquer people pleasing, and start living a life on their terms, nobody else's. So the first moment I wanted to talk about today is when a man finally stops using the coping mechanisms that he's used to cope, to survive, since he was a boy. Now, if you look back in your history, it's likely that the coping mechanisms that you use today, video games, pornography, food, whatever the case is, it's likely that they go back a long way. But in my own life, in order to cope with the challenges of childhood and my challenging upbringing, I played video games since I was like 3 or 4 years old, literally. I'm not even kidding. That's one of my earliest memories. Because I didn't feel safe at school, I didn't feel safe at home, I learned to disappear into video games. And I did that all the way through my childhood. I did that all the way through my teenage years. Video games were always there for me to cope with my emotions. But the problem is, a man chooses depth over comfort. A boy, psychologically a boy, doesn't look to the future. Right? Because literally children can't look to the future because their brains aren't developed yet. Psychologically, a boy wants pleasure now. A boy wants short-term gratification in this moment. So that's psychologically one of the things that points out that we are psychologically adolescent. But until you make that decision, you will never fully grow, you will never fully mature, you will never fully develop. You are like the hero in the hero's journey that's refusing to go out there and go on his quest. He wants to stay at home playing video games. The second moment is the moment a man chooses his mission over a woman's validation. You see, here's how deep this goes. One of the things that keeps men stuck in psychological adolescence is the emotional umbilical cord, which is an attachment to the mother. Psychologically, it used to be the case to our ancestors, there would be rites of passage and rituals that would separate a boy from his mother and introduce him to the challenging world of men, to be amongst men, to realise his true potential and realise the unique gifts that he can give to the world. These days, we don't have that at all. So as a result, we have a high percentage of men shuffling around who don't know themselves outside of a woman's approval. It's the case for so many men that most of what they're doing now is actually some unconscious attempt just to get women to like them. And on a deeper level, that is because he's still psychologically hooked up to the mother, because the culture, the community, and even his father, because most of us don't even have a father that could do this anymore, failed to help us separate from her. But the moment a man chooses his mission, he chooses himself over a woman's validation, that means that he now has the emotional resilience to support himself. He can lead himself. He can hold himself. Any feelings of abandonment, any feelings of anxiety, all these emotions that he's been avoiding and been trying to find mum to help him deal with, when he says no to women and yes to himself, that's when he's telling himself, that's when he's telling the world that he can handle himself and he can stand independently. If you're not sure where you fit with this, try quitting pornography, try quitting dating, try going celibate for 3 months at least. You will see how far you are along this journey if you do that. The third moment that separates a man from the boy is when he experiences failure. We all experience failure. Failure is the price of success. It's the price of growth. If you want to do something that's worthwhile, you'll come up against obstacles, you'll come up against challenges. Those will force you to adapt, overcome, and to self-soothe. A boy, in the face of failure, that's if he ever actually consciously goes towards failure to begin with. The eternal boy, the Peter Pan, the pure Eternus, often lives an entire life where he avoids failure completely. So ultimately he fails in the long run anyway, but he's doing it to try and control things and not feel any discomfort. But if a boy like that was to experience failure, 9 times out of 10, he would crumble. He'd get resentful. He'd get angry. He'd blame people. He wouldn't take responsibility. His emotions would all of a sudden become everyone else's problem, right? He would say, I'm not going to try again. See, I tried it and it screwed up. I'm never doing this again. Victim mode, right? That's what a boy does. That's how a boy handles failure. But what does a man do? When a man is psychologically well developed, he experiences failure, he experiences setbacks, and he self-soothes. He has learned to be the parent to himself that he never had before. He speaks to himself with compassion versus the internalized voice of his father, which is the inner critic, the punishing voice. He learns to dust himself off and he strategizes and he goes again. When a man can do that, he's proving to himself that he's no longer a dependent boy who needs everyone to manage his own emotions. He's proving that he is a man who can hold himself. And if he can hold himself, maybe at some point he can hold the emotions of other people. He can provide value to the tribe in some way because he's no longer dependent. He is independent, he can give value, and that's what shows that this man has made the transition. Moment number 4 that separates the man from the boy is when he cuts the cord from his parents. And what I mean by that is, if a man is psychologically adolescent, he will usually bend the truth around his parents. He'll tell his parents what they want to hear. He'll have a lot of sort of issues around his parents that he's never even discussing. He will be the good boy around his parents. Or, on the flip side, he'll be like a rebellious teenager, angry and resentful because his parents can't live up to the pedestalized version of them that he has in his mind. You should do this, but you're not, so I'm angry at you. Okay, so he's either the good boy or he's the rebel. Both of them are forms of psychological adolescence. But a man, a psychological man, internally, he has successfully cut the umbilical cord with his mother. He's created that separation from his father. What does that look like in day-to-day living? This looks like setting boundaries with your parents. This looks like being financially distanced from your parents, financially independent. This means going off into the world, maybe traveling, experiencing some of life. It means seeking your own approval, not seeking your parents for every decision. The truth is, for a man to be a man, he must live as if his parents were dead already. And if a man is not doing this, then psychologically, the boy is driving the steering wheel of his life and is in some way assuming that he's going to be saved, which is not the case. Because the last thing that we men need to realize, if we're ever going to be happy, is that nobody is coming to save us. Nobody is coming to save us. And the faster we can make peace with that truth, the quicker our life will improve. Thank you for watching, mate. I'll see you in the next video. Stay courageous.